You're looking for some respite from all the doom and gloom? I got you. Now, every day it seems like there's some new news story or event that makes it feel like the world is spinning into oblivion. And a lot of these things are awful for a lot of people and could have terrible consequences for everybody's lives. Republicans have moved on from just flirting with fascism to openly trying to pick it up like they're Matt Gaetz and it's a 13-year-old girl. The Supreme Court is rapidly taking away long-standing personal and civil liberties. People are trying to ban books like Fahrenheit 451 was an instruction manual. Decades of ignoring climate change have us hurtling towards mass extinction. American History X is somehow more relevant today than when it was made. Former president and current candidate for president was just convicted on 34 felony counts, not to mention having been found liable for fraud and sexual assault, and has 3 more criminal cases pending and is still somehow competitive in the polls. Yep, the world seems pretty fucked, and in a lot of ways it is. And if we don't have some course correction soon, we're definitely poised to end up in a lot more trouble. But it's always important to see things through a historical context. Now, granted, 34 felony accounts of a former US president, that's brand new. There's no historical context for that. But America flirting with fascism is more of a reoccurring theme than you might think. Obviously, we had slavery, but when we abolished that, we immediately set up Jim Crow laws that lasted for the following century. And to undo those laws, it took a lot of fighting, and a lot of times it felt like we were slipping backwards. In fact, African American workers for the federal government had made huge strides in equality until Woodrow Wilson showed up and is like, no, you guys need to work in cages now. Quite literally, under the Wilson administration, he made them build cages so the African Americans would be separated by bars from everybody else. And he undid a bunch of other civil rights strides too, and he didn't stop there. In fact, Woodrow is arguably our most fascist modern president because he just straight up jailed thousands of people for speaking out against him and being disapproving of him entering the First World War. He jailed people if he felt like they might be a communist or a socialist or even sympathize with communist or socialist ideas. And I don't know if you've read the Constitution, but the First Amendment is pretty clear about that not being allowed. And he did this all without due process. They weren't charged of a crime, they weren't offered representation, just put in jail, which is also a constitutional violation and pretty fashy. Most famously, he jailed Eugene Debs for being a socialist, and Eugene Debs ran as a socialist for president, being the most successful socialist presidential candidate in history running from jail, which, well, unlikely at the rate things are going, we may see another presidential candidate running from jail. Woodrow was also a Mike Johnson level religious zealot, so there's that. As you can see, there's some parallels here, and while all of that is bad, it's not new. Fast forward a few years, and we have FDR, who is one of, if not the greatest president of our history. And he threw American citizens of Japanese descent into concentration camps, again, without any due process, without any criminal conviction, nothing. Somewhat similar MAGA-style revolts happened during the Civil Rights era, during the party switch. You know, when Southern Democrats who were tired of their party not being racist enough anymore switched to the Republican Party and took that over. These brutality issues, meddling in foreign affairs, funding foreign wars, these have been perennial issues for the United States. Women's rights issues have also been perennial. And environmental issues, my God, the environmental issues. From water so polluted that rivers in Ohio have caught on fire repeatedly. DuPont polluting the entire world by dumping Teflon products and just Teflon itself being in cookware and being highly toxic. To a literal hole in the ozone layer we caused from using too much aerosol. And while all of this is horrible, it's also heartening because we've fixed or improved so many of these problems. The world came together and fixed what was causing the hole in the ozone layer, and it's repairing itself. Well, we've got a long ways to go on civil rights and women's rights. We're a lot further than we've ever been, even with our setbacks. As much as Trump has vocally stated that he wants to lock up his critics, Wilson did it, and he hasn't been able to. At least not yet. See, the reality is that people are lazy and we have short attention spans. And when things get too good, we put off progress. Because, you know, progress is a lot of work and we don't wanna. And by putting it off, things slowly get worse until suddenly it's way more inconvenient, way more uncomfortable, and way more work to keep putting it off than it is to ignore it. Then people start getting involved. They show up to vote. They join a union. They go on strike. They protest. And with that, we get labor laws and we get civil rights protections and we get environmental protections. And that's what we're seeing now is the youth getting involved, showing up to fight the power, protesting on campuses just like we did back in the 60s. We saw waves of strikes and huge strides for labor over the past couple years. We had the highest voter turnout for a midterm, pretty sure in history, in the last election. They took away women's rights to bodily autonomy, so people are showing up in droves to vote for ballot referendums to codify that. We're being a little slow on climate change, which is unnerving, but I still have faith in humanity's ability to rise to that challenge as well. Because the reality is that looking back through history, all the times that we've felt like we were on the worst track is the times that we were on the right track. Civil War, the civil unrest of the 60s, without the JFK and MLK assassinations, the civil rights bills may not have passed when they did. People need proper motivation to affect change, and we're being properly motivated right now. As long as we don't get complacent and we don't let off on the pressure, there's a really good chance that we're not totally fucked. And humanity will come out of these trials and tribulations better for it. So just keep your chin up and your fight on, and we can do this.